Good afternoon and welcome to this meeting of the Charity Trustees Subcommittee. Welcome to anybody who is watching this on the webcast. Thank you all for attending. The meeting today is open to the public. We don't have any items that contain exempt information, so there won't be any need to exclude the press or public. We have received no public petitions, questions or statements for today's meeting under the new system. Please can I request that mobile telephones and other such equipment are switched to silent mode so as to not disturb the conduct of the meeting. I'm advised there is no fire test planned for today. If the alarms go off and there is an emergency evacuation, please take instruction from the Town Hall staff. Our assembly point is Tudor Square. For the benefit of the webcast, please may I ask each member to introduce themselves. Right.
Hi, Councillor from Belbin for Firth Park Ward and Deputy Chair of the Committee.
Good afternoon, I'm Mike Chaplin, I'm a Councillor for Southey Ward.
Good afternoon, I'm Christine Gilligan-Kubo and I'm a Councillor for Hillsborough Ward.
Thank you. Moving on then, could I just ask officers when they come up to speak if they would introduce themselves for the benefit of both the web and the people in the room. Okay, apologies for absence. Do we have any?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we've got apologies from Councillor Curtis Crossland.
Thank you. As I said, there's no need to have exclusion of the press and public today. Declarations of interest. Do any members wish to declare an interest on any of the items on today's agenda? Take silence as a no. Thank you very much. Item 4, minutes of the previous meeting. I will go through them page by page. If you have any queries, please indicate. The first page, page 1, is actually page 11, page 12, page 13, page 14, page 15, page 16, page 17, and the minutes as a whole. Just one query I have looking at these minutes. At the last committee meeting, we did have an item delayed about for a meeting with the cricket club with a view to coming back. I understand for good reasons that meeting hasn't taken place. Is that correct?
That's right. We currently hope it'll be able to come to the November meeting. The meeting between the Friends, the Council and the Cricket Club has had to be delayed, but I believe it is scheduled. Caroline? Is the meeting scheduled with the Cricket Club? Not yet. I'll follow that one up. It sounds like it will be able to happen, so I'll follow that up.
So it's reasonable to expect that to be at the November meeting. Thank you very much. Item 5 is public petitions, questions and statements. We have received none today. And item 6 is members' questions. We've not received any from the members as well. I'll now move to item 7, which is the work programme. Rachel.
Thanks. I'm Rachel Appleyard from Democratic Services. So the work programme shows all the known substantive agenda items for forthcoming meetings of this subcommittee. Changes since the last meeting can be found on page 24 in the pack. There's a table on there that sets those out. And then the agendas for the forthcoming meetings appear in Appendix 1, which is on page 27. And I'll hand over to officers if there's any specific questions on items. Thank you.
Do we have any questions from the officers? No? Members, any queries or questions or points you'd like to make? No. Okay, thank you. That item is noted. Item 8 is an update on the Rose Garden Café.
Yeah, sorry. It says there's an update on tramlines. Have we had that? Have I lost that, or was that the last meeting?
It's today's meeting.
It's not in his papers.
It was sent out later.
Okay, so
In the box over there, there was I think it's agenda item 12. Yeah. We'll just wait a minute to distribute these. Thank you. Okay. Item 8 then is an update on the Rose Garden Café. And could I ask Rebecca Nixon and Chris Hallam, who's the chair of the Rose Garden Café Partnership, to come forward? Okay, firstly, welcome. Thank you for coming in today. It's nice to see you both again. I'm sure you have lots of exciting and positive things to say to us. How do you want to play this? You just want to give us a brief presentation, and then would you like questions throughout the presentation or at the end?
Throughout's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever. If you think of it, ask it.
Thank you. Over to you then.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. So I'm Rebecca Nixon. I'm a council officer and a representative of the Rose Garden Café Partnership.
And I'm Chris Hallam. I'm the independent chair of the Rose Garden Café Partnership.
Today we're going to give you it's the 4th progress update on the partnership's work since the October 2023 approved recommendations. We'll be mainly updating on establishing of the funding sources, as the other 3 recommendations have now been completed, and you can refer to previous reports for updates on them. So this progress update is since our last progress update, which was on the 16th of July. So it will be telling the progress up until the 29th of August when this report was complete. So the key thing that we'd just like to start with is that obviously we reopened the internal seating of the cafe on August the 7th and had a really great celebration day. That was a big achievement for the partnership and a big milestone. So it was off the back of the structural engineer's report, which said that we no longer needed that internal scaffolding that was propping the roof. All the external scaffolding propping the wall, which is the main structural problem, does remain until we do the refurbishment works. So yeah, that was a great moment for the partnership to kind of achieve that. And now we can really focus on starting to raise the funds. So that was that key point there. The other thing that's happened since we last updated you is that we had an initial cost estimate, so of 2 million for the full restoration and refurbishment. What that is based on is the co-created brief that we made as a partnership, which is off the back of the consultation requirements, along with the operator requirements, Sheffield City Council, and the partnership requirements. And that brief has gone to the design team. The design team is very nearly appointed, so we have the structural engineer, architect, service engineers, and we've got all of them, we're onboarding them currently, and what we've agreed as a partnership is that we're going to have them take the design based on that brief up to REBA stage 2, which means a fully coordinated concept design for the restoration and refurbishment of the cafe. And the plan is that that's forecast to be complete in December. So at that point, we'll have a full design that will then help us acquire more funding. And what we've agreed as a partnership is that we'll pay for those fees, so those design team fees, from the committed LAC funding, which was generously given, and also the Essential Compliance and Maintenance Fund, which was approved. The prioritisation of that fund was approved by Finance Committee in March 2023. So that's the funding pot that we're going to use to pay for those design team fees to take the design up to REBA stage 2. The other thing that will be produced by the architect will be a kind of development appraisal pack, which is what will be expected by funders to understand the kind of commercial model of the cafe moving forward, the impact on community, as well as the kind of more detailed design. So yeah, that's the plan kind of moving forward to the end of the year. And obviously one of the things that we're trying to address as a partnership is to understand how we kind of get the rest of the funding to keep the project going. And I'm now going to hand over to Chris to talk through what we've been doing.
Thanks, Rebecca. I think it might be interesting for Chair and members and officers to kind of understand what's different about the way that we've kind of got to where we've got. There are a few things. So first of all, the £2 million cost estimate includes a load of stuff we may not end up doing. It includes restoring some outdoor seating. It includes £250,000 worth of professional fees, things like that. But one of the things we've done quite early is we've been able to find a way, working with officers, of getting things like pro bono professional fees onto frameworks, so that professionals that are interested in supporting the project can offer some or all of their time at either a discount cost or for free. That's really potentially a big win, and if we can bake that into the way that we work in the future, again, I think really, really positive. We're operating on a kind of a task and finish basis. So at the moment, we've got 4 task and finish groups that we've just set up to kind of do the sorts of things that need to be done. So, for example, we've got a task and finish group looking at fundraising. And they're going to create a calendar of events that coordinate with events that happen in the park, so that there's a coordinated approach, so members of the public don't see a constant badgering for different asks, but it looks like a coordinated effort from across the park, and the park managers involved in that work. We're producing a comms calendar so that everybody will know what we're going to be saying to the public and when we're going to be saying it. And again, that's from members of the partnership that are producing that. There is a task and finish group specifically looking at our grant applications, so Heritage Lottery Fund specifically, and meetings have already happened between members of that task and finish group and the funders, and so we continue to work with them. And we've got a group that's being led by Rebecca and officers, but includes other members of the partnership, about the design team onboarding. So we're getting all the stuff done by using a task and finish group approach, which I think is really helpful for you to know as well. I think that's really all I wanted to update you on at this stage. We have got lots of activity going on now, and you'll see our latest statement talks about a fundraising of £25,000, which is 10% of the initial cost estimate for restoring the front wall. That's what we think we'll need to put in there. The good news is we're almost halfway there with what's already been raised from the public. We're at about 12,000, over 12,000 now. And we know there's a couple, maybe £1,500, £2,000 that's on its way to us on that one. So that's really, really positive too. So it is genuinely going to be a kind of co-created project. So, have you any questions from officers or members?
Yeah, firstly, thank you for that. Fran.
Thanks. The work sounds really exciting, so well done to everybody involved, first of all, and it sounds a really sensible approach, taking the task and finish approach. I did go up to the Café for the first time. So I've been since it's been reopened last week, and it was fantastic.
It's a great cup of coffee, isn't it?
Yeah, really enjoyed it. So great to see it back open again. One thing, well, a couple of questions. I picked up looking at the consultation, and you couldn't miss it being in the Café. It's obviously used by loads of families.
Yes.
And lots of people taking children, and there was quite a bit in the consultation around creating play areas and things like that inside the Café. So I just wondered if any consideration had gone into that already.
Yes, so it has. Part of the design team brief, we're looking at things like whether parts of the floor area needs to be a softer area for movable play. We've also talked about things like white noise walls to separate play areas from the rest of the Café so that you don't necessarily hear everything that's going on. It's a solution that I've seen in open plan buildings in the city, where there's a kind of a white noise curtain. One side of it, you don't hear all the noise that's going on, those kind of things. We've definitely talked about that quite a lot. There was also a lot of stuff in the consultation about elderly visitors and visitors who are single, and alleviation of loneliness. So we've got to try and balance. The consultation did say they like the fact that it's a big open space, so we're not thinking that we would petition any of that room off. So it's trying to find a balance between how do you get an area where kids can be kids and you can read your Kindle at the other end of the room. And we'll give that challenge to the design professionals. They'll come up with some solutions for us, but absolutely we recognise there's also dogs that are in there all the time, including my dogs. So it's balancing all of that, isn't it? We're also in the design, we were talking about it just outside, Caroline and myself, we're also thinking about environmental measures, things like bat boxes and how you can be sensitive to the fact that it is in a park. There's lots of wildlife around. What do you do with that kind of thing? So, and all of that came out of the consultation. Consultation is great, but it gives you a million ideas, doesn't it? But it is really good.
Thanks. And it also talks a lot about the use of the space for community use, and obviously a cafe is community use, but I wondered, are you thinking about, you know, it might be available for hire by communities to do things and so on?
We are, absolutely. And one of the things we were touching on, and we said that we would come back to you at some point, is a kind of a legacy view of what we think the cafe will be like when it's done and how it gets operated. We touched at our last meeting on kind of what's it for, and that notion of we want community groups to be able to use it, and we also want it to be able to be a cafe. We need to try and find that balance. So yes, we would be considering, are there times when it could be hired completely, partially? How does it get used in evenings and weekends? Example, one of the things in the consultation somebody said to us was the local astronomy group would like to put telescopes in the rose garden at night, and so they'd like access to maybe a hot drink during the night time. So there's all sorts of stuff to consider, but yeah, we'll try and find that balance between a regular cafe and a community space that people can use. So definitely on the radar for us.
Thanks. Do you mind if I just carry on? I think you've probably answered one of the other questions, which was just around those 4 priorities of Heritage Lottery and how you felt you were, the partnerships contributing to those and the projects contributing to those. But you've talked quite a lot about the environment. I think the whole, again, the consultation shows really clearly around the inclusion, access and participation. I suppose there's still a little bit of a question around the organisational sustainability. Again, that's coming... looking at what the partnership might look like going forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
As, you know, we're not committed to making it a formal entity, if you like. So.
No, and we will be looking. I think we will be looking to bring recommendations back to you around what a sustainable model looks like for that going forward. We recognise it's not straight. It's not easy. It's not simple. But so one of the things we're doing is we're being very transparent about what it costs to run a cafe and what the cafe might generate in terms of income. So being really transparent about that is the first step, and we've actually started to uncover that. So we have within our papers a financial standing report that shows what it will cost to operate it, everything from replacing light bulbs and basic maintenance through to what would a 30-year maintenance plan look like once it's restored, that type of detail, so that we can come back to you and say, this is what it takes to operate it over the long term. It's very in line with your plan across the city on building maintenance, actually, with a new plan. It's completely aligned with that. So that will help, I think, that discussion. It will also help all of the partners to understand and myth bust, if you like, on some of the stuff that's happened in the past. Because we know that the relationship between the council and the partners wasn't good at a particular point. We know now that everybody's working really well together. And that part of that journey is having those conversations open and honest and fairly in the room, and everybody feeling like they've been listened to. So we need to continue to do that. I don't know what the numbers will eventually look like, but we'll get to them. And we'll get to them in a kind of fair and transparent way, so you'll see them. But yeah, we definitely be coming back to you with we think if we're not going to get into this situation again, here's what the future sustainable model needs to look like, because we all want that, and frankly a funder won't give us any money if we don't come up with that story. The Heritage Lottery Fund won't give us £2 million if we haven't got a good reason for spending it and investing it. So
thank you, and thank you for coming to the community engagement session last week as well, and
no, it was great.
Contributing to that as well.
Enjoyed
it was really helpful. I think, again, you've covered the last point. £2 million is an awful lot of money.
It is.
And it's just a comment, really. I'm pleased to hear you talking about different approaches to that. And it's not all or nothing with this project.
No, it's not. And as a kind of operating principle, 2 things are in our mind. The first one is, okay, if that's the number, how do we beat it? So what do we do to get a better outcome than that number? And then the evaluation around, is that really what we need to do? Because the consultation, we've included everything. A brand new outdoor seating area is included in there. That's £130,000. that wasn't part of the initial story. It might be something we do later. The clock tower restoration is in there. I think that's 16,000, 15,000 pounds just for the 16,000 just for the clock tower. Again, is that what we'll do straight away? Would it be a separate fundraising activity? We might get it done. We know somebody that's done one. They might come and help us do it. All of that stuff. So we'll try and beat that number every way we can. But actually, that does, you know, the fees included in there. The only internal fee you should be aware of is the cost of project manager inside the council. Everything else would be external professional fees. So it's not council paying council. It's genuine professional cost estimates.
Thank you, and it's great to hear that you've been so practical about it, and I think that's really helpful. I just have one final point, Chair, which is possibly for yourself rather than, I did see in the report it's suggesting that we bring the next report to November committee, I think it says. But given that the design work is going to take until December...
We're not going to have much to update,
That's
to be
what I
fair,
was thinking. Would it not make more sense perhaps to come back in January when we've got the full report?
I think so. I mean,
if
if something material comes out, we'll obviously let you know, but I doubt we'll be in the middle of the design work, so I don't think there's going to be much to update you on at that stage. We won't have anything to show you, for sure. If you're okay with that, I think January feels more sensible. We're going to be in the middle of everything, so.
Thank you. Yes, certainly in terms of an update, there's no point asking you to come back with no news, so I'm quite happy for it to be January. If you think that's
coming
all right.
off the Christmas market, I mean, be okay. We started then, will it? End of November.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else, any other members have any questions? Okay, just one, I have one more, Chris. In terms of I came along to one of your meetings.
Yes.
Very enlightening, informative. Good to see people all working together. I mean, if you had a chance to look back from where you are now, would you have done anything different?
So I can only speak from March to now, which is when I was appointed. I think there are two things for officers and members to consider. It's fantastic that we've got access to the resource that we've got. The extent to which that's scalable is a question. I think, you know, Becky's time is extensively used by the partnership, let's put it that way. And she's tracking the time that she's using. So I think one of the things we might think about is going forward, whether a partnership like this should be a single issue partnership or should maybe tackle more things than that. Because conceptually, the right people around the table to deal with a number of different issues. That might be something we want to think about, actually, as we start to go forward. I'm not saying we've got plenty of work to do right now, we have, but that might be one of the things that I understand exactly why officers and members got to where they did, but independently it feels like we could probably maximise the use of time if there was a number of different issues being dealt with, particularly, say, all in the location of the park. That might be something that you would think about. So that would be a possible, let's just think about how we do that going forward. The second thing is the way that the partnerships worked has been definitely down to the commitment of the individuals. Not every local organisation could necessarily provide people to meet fortnightly on a committee meeting in the daytime. That's not necessarily how community groups would be able to staff or man the demand. We're fortunate in that within our partnership, people have got the time to do that, and I'm grateful for that. But that wouldn't necessarily be the case everywhere, I think. So one of the things we might be thinking about that kind of impetus and energy that you need to keep things going. Fortnightly meetings, 3 hours in the week, might not fit for everybody. I wouldn't let that get in the way, because there are obviously ways around that, but it's just something to think about. It's a big commitment from all the members of the partnership, and then when I'm giving them a task and finish group to go and do as well, they have to go and do extra work. So, but Caroline is smiling at me, so she's okay with doing something.
Okay, thank you, that's very helpful. And just by way of a small advertisement, I believe not only is the coffee very good in the cafe, but for every cup sold, 10 pence goes into
10
the
pence
fund.
goes, and that's, yeah, we're already into the several hundreds of pounds that have been raised as a result of that. So, yeah, it all helps.
Well, thank you very much for your time for coming in today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next items are actually 3 items relating to similar themes, but, sorry, recommendations. Thank you very much, Chair, Deputy Chair. We do have some recommendations. I'll read them out. We have 4. Note the progress made towards the actions agreed in the October 2023 report. Agree to receive a further report. Here it says on the 25th of November. I think we've agreed that will be in January, at the meeting in January, on progress towards establishing the funding sources as agreed in the October 23 report. Note, and I think also that will include a feedback on how we're getting on with the design development. Note that further updates and decisions will be taken to the appropriate committee as required. Support the partnership to begin to establish funds for the full restoration and refurbishment at an initial cost estimate of £2 million. Have I got agreement? Thank you, that's then agreed. Right, it's because I like ice cream that I wanted to rush on to the next items. There are 3 items, 9, 10 and 11. We are taking them individually, I believe. Are you going to present them individually? No, you're going to present them as one. Sorry, can you put your mic on, please, Dave?
Present them as one, but there is a requirement for 3 separate approvals. Okay, so I'm Dave Rice. I'm the business manager in Parks in the business and partnership section. And this is about, as you've already alluded to, ice creams, the provision of ice creams in the sites across the city. 3 of the sites are charitable: Weston Park, Endcliffe Park and Graves Park. We also sell ice creams at mill houses as well, which isn't a charitable site. All the current licences run out spring 25, so for the summer season we need to look at those licences. Previously the licences have been 3-year agreements. The vans have diesel engines, Euro 6 compliant diesel engines, but still diesel engines. And in order to keep the ice creams frozen, the vans have to keep their engines idling. It's the power from the diesel engine that keeps everything cold. Often in close proximity to playgrounds, next to exercise areas, right in the middle of the parks, running diesel engines throughout their trading hours. We've spoken with our current operators, and there are new and developing technologies that would eliminate the need to keep that engine chugging away. There could be a fully electric solution, or more likely solar refrigeration. In that case, the diesel engine is driven into the park and then turned off. There's a bank of batteries that keeps things cold, topped up by light energy. This sort of technology is very expensive, and it would require the operators to have longer licence periods. That would give them the confidence and also the opportunity to recoup any investment. So the recommendation is to extend from 3 years to possibly up to 7 years on a licence. We have considered other options. We looked at electric points across the parks to plug a vehicle into. That's very challenging. There's lots of problems there, particularly around cost and also the kind of what we'd have to do to the park to get them in. So that's not an option at the moment. There's also the option to carry on as we are. That doesn't sit in line with any kind of clean air policies or the city goals. We've got a 2030 city goal of vastly improved air quality. And again, I suppose we don't have to have ice cream vans in the park. There's an option to not have ice cream. Who doesn't want an ice cream on a nice day in a park? It's been part of the park culture for many, many years. There'd also be a significant impact there on the finances of the charity. There'd be a big loss of income. So what I need is to seek approval on three of the three separate charities to offer longer licences, but with an emphasis on increased air quality, reducing emission, kind of greener ways of doing things. I'd like to go to the market and see what that comes back with, and then the intention is to come back with further information, a report and recommendations from there.
Thank you very much. There's any questions? Christine?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I welcome this approach. I do think we need to have cleaner air in our parks, so I'm in favour of this overall. I have one little point on page 60 about Endcliffe Park. I think this is just a typing mistake. It says it expired in the 1st of April 2024. Should it say 2025?
Yeah, they're all 2025.
Yeah, okay, so that's just a typing mistake, so that's fine. It confused me when I read it because I was trying to work out, well, what's been happening this year. But so I have two other short questions. One of the questions is, and this is around the hybrid model, will you have a clause, if you give them, say, a 7-year licence, a clause that you can, if they start running their engines during the day or things like that, will there be clauses that we can get rid of them if they're not complying? I mean, I just want to make sure that we aren't signing up to something that we can't get out of if they're not complying with what we want.
I'll come back on that one if that's okay. It will depend what they come back with.
Yeah.
So this ask is to go out to the market, and we don't know yet what will come back. But yeah, that will be one of the things for this committee to decide when we've got the tenders back and we're suggesting a way forward. It'll be what is it that they're proposing, and then what mechanisms do we want to put in place to protect the park and park users.
Yeah, okay, so my second question is probably going to get the same answer then. It's like, especially this is around Endcliffe Park, because I know we've gone out to tender for the building uses there. Again, I guess we'll be looking at how we can make sure they don't clash with each other and take business off each other. So that will be for a future discussion there. Yeah, okay, I'll be quiet.
Thank you. Could you turn your mic off, please? Mike?
Yes, fully support the direction of this, and it will be welcome, particularly to parents and grandparents that bring their children to parks, to know that we can get rid of those diesel fumes. Are you hoping to bring this back to the November committee or the one after Christmas with proposals?
I'm going to stick my neck out, tentatively say November, with Ruth's at the side of me, but potentially January either, but we'll definitely get back to you. I guess it depends on the decision today and how quick we can get adverts and things out.
Yeah, because I would have thought the sooner we can get that back out there, that's going to give providers more confidence that they can deliver in time for spring 25.
They need to start to order vans, whatever kit they're going to use, assuming they're successful.
Is there any further questions or comments? Fran?
Thanks, yeah. So when we're talking about emerging technologies, as I think we are around the kind of solar freezers or whatever, I suppose, how much are we doing the research ourselves, if you like, or how much are we relying on the trade to tell us what's available and, you know, what's the balance there really? Because I'm quite conscious, you know, when these things are emerging, they tend to be quite expensive and prices drop and then potentially there's other new technology emerging as well. So I just wondered what's the balance there between what we do around this and what the providers do.
I've got to be honest, I've never bought an ice cream van. I have had conversations with all of our operators in isolation, and they've all pretty much come back with the same thing. So I think the information we've got is reliable across the sector. It's a bit of a niche sector, to be fair.
Mike?
Yes, I'm just mindful that we know the taxi trade have met with similar problems and concerns when they were trying to purchase electric vehicles so that they would be compliant within our CAS zone. So I suppose I'm just putting a word of caution out there, but if you can get this report back to us for November, I think it will help the trade to be able to organise to put in decent bids that we can look at.
I think it's probably worth saying that we'll need to assess each tender as it comes back, because we don't know what the lead-in time is for some of these vehicles. There may be a situation where the first 6 months, the first 12 months of the tender, they have to operate with their existing vehicles because they can't get the new vehicle until then. So we will assess each one on its merits and also work out what is the art of the possible as we set out what we expect of them.
Thank you. Are we aware of any councils already doing this?
I'm not particularly not in the north of England with solar. It's kind of so new and developing. I think there's been successful cases in Somerset and Cornwall where solar's worked fine, but I'm not aware of any in the north.
Thank you. In that case, if there's no further questions, we'll go to the decisions. We'll do this one item at a time, although it's the theme of all three is very similar. The first one, under item 9, is Endcliffe Park. The recommendation is to approve the proposal to go out to the market for an ice cream operator for Endcliffe Park, based on the principles outlined in this report, and note that a recommendation will be brought back to the committee following the tender process for approval to enter into a licence arrangement with the recommended operator. Is that agreed? That's been agreed unanimously. Thank you. Okay, item 10 refers to Graves Park, and again the recommendations are in effect the same, but I will read them out. The first one is to approve the proposal to go out to market for an ice cream operator for Graves Park based on the principles outlined within this report. And the second recommendation is to note that a recommendation will be brought back to the committee following the tender process for the approval to enter into a licence arrangement with the recommended operator. Is that agreed? Yep, unanimously. Finally, item 11 refers to Weston Park. Again, I will read the recommendations out just for the notes. Firstly, to approve the proposal to go out to the market for an ice cream operator for Weston Park based on the principles outlined within this report. And secondly, note that a recommendation will be brought back to the committee following the tender process for approval to enter into a licence arrangement with the recommended operator. Is that agreed? Great, thank you, and thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Our final item today is actually agenda item 12, which is a post-event report on the Tramlines Festival 2024. And this is a report based on our role as a charity trustees, not necessarily to do with the event or anything like that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I spoke earlier without introducing myself. I'm Ruth Bell, I'm Head of Parks and Countryside. I'm presenting this report on behalf of Lisa Firth, who can't be here today. I'm not proposing to read through the report word for word, but apologies that some councillors may not have seen this coming into their inbox. This report was submitted late, so I will go through it a little bit more than I might otherwise do, if that's okay, to make sure that you've got a flavour of what it is that the report says. So the report updates committee following this year's Tramlines event. It starts out by setting out some of the charitable objectives and also the ways in which Tramlines have a licence to hold the event within the park. And Councillor Williams is right, this report isn't talking about the event itself and specifically how that went, or about the economic benefits of the event. This is talking about the condition of the park and how the park fared during the event, which obviously is of importance to you as trustee of the park. So as this committee knows, planning for this year's event had the issues that were experienced last year in mind, as the event was being approached. The weather for the first half of the year was, as you all know, very wet, but thankfully within the park, the large grassed areas, particularly the large field, did fare quite well as we came into the run-up of the event. And then from sort of beginning of July, we did actually start to experience probably our first bit of dry weather of the year, which was perfect timing, in all honesty. In order to best protect the park, the council agreed with Tramlines that additional ground protections would be put in place, irrespective of the weather that we were anticipating experiencing during that weekend. And local councillors were walked through the park by Tramlines and had all of that explained to them, the different options and how the plan for protecting the park was going, and what the key areas were that needed to be protected or better protected, where lots of people were, it was known that lots of people were going to gather. In the event, the weather on that weekend was good, and the event did take place with a huge audience engaging with the 3 days of music. Once the event had happened, obviously Tramlines started to withdraw from the park, and we assessed the park several times with Tramlines, who, as you'll all recall, are responsible for bringing the park back to the state that it was before, making sure that any remedial works are undertaken. So we walked around the park several times and collectively took the decision that actually we were going to give the park a little bit of time to recover. We weren't going to rush in and reseed immediately, because we could see on assessing the grassed areas, for example, that a lot of grass had been flattened, but it hadn't actually been damaged. It just needed to be given a bit of time, a bit of sunshine, and, as this is England, a little bit of rain as well. And we also didn't want to go straight into a period of having to fence off small areas to do remedial works. We wanted people to be able to experience the park through the summer in ways that they weren't able to last year, obviously. And I was in the park on Thursday, and I could see, as I think anybody that's been to the park would see, that was actually the right decision. The grassed areas have recovered absolutely incredibly well. The park is looking very good. That's not to say that there aren't small remedial works needed. There are, but the park is looking very good. As the summer and apparently the summer weather have now ended, we have actually started some of the works to help the park to recover and also to improve it going forward. So on Thursday last week, there were large tractors moving through the field, aerating the field and starting to prepare it for any seeding work that might be needed. But overall, the park has fared extremely well and is also recovering extremely well. We've got a list of things that we're working through with Tramlines about small things that are needed. So, for example, I think a bench had been slightly damaged, and Tramlines, of course, are on that and getting that sorted. Some curbstones need replacing, and we're looking at that. But overall, the park did very well through the event weekend, and we are starting the remedial works, which we hope won't impact on use of the park at all, particularly now that we're in this autumn period. So the recommendation of the report, there's just one, and it just asks that you note the contents of the report.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? Yes, certainly, Fran.
A quick question. I think it's clear in the report that Tramlines paid for all those remedial works, but it talks as well about some of the build-up and installing a French drain, which I must admit I have no idea what that is, and some works to two of the big fields to improve drainage there. Was that covered by Tramlines as well, or is that council costs?
I believe it was all covered by Tramlines. Tramlines have been heavily involved in improving the park in advance of those events to mean that it can better deal with the event. So yeah, they've done a lot of improvement works, not just bringing it back to the state that it was. I mean, it does feel like with every single little bit of work that we do in that park, we are improving the park, not just returning it to what it was before. So yeah, Tramlines are heavily involved in those costs. They also were involved in the pathwork costs, of course, widening and strengthening those paths.
Okay, just one question for myself, Ruth. Obviously, this year the spotlight was very much on the park because of what happened last year, and I know a lot of extra things were put in place. Are they going to now be standard going forward? So it's not just we'll do a lot this year, but we'll drop it back again next year.
I think probably the easiest way to explain it was, as we headed towards this event, it felt like we had a plan A, a plan B and a plan C. Plan A was good weather, plan B was not as good weather and plan C was bad weather. What we actually agreed was that even though it looked like the weather forecast was going to be good, and it was, that actually our plan B would become our plan A. So that's now our plan for looking after the park, is that it will be protected to that extent, plus whatever else is needed dependent on the weather forecast.
That's good to hear, thank you. And thank you for your report. If there's no further questions, then thank you for that. And that finishes actually our meeting today. It's been relatively short. We've made some decisions. We've obviously hit the right note with the general public. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you.